So Trump has won the election, and women are understandably freaking out about what this means. They feel their women's rights are under attack because of the abortion laws, and the Supreme Court is packed with conservative justices. I'm Sal with Omni-Versal. We put young adults on the holistic path to achieving the American dream by the age of 35, by making small continuous improvements known as Kaizen. We want to make you the adult you were promised you'd be by teaching you things that school should have been teaching you in the first place. Now, before we continue, I do have to say that you have to be willing to learn. Based on our last video, we got a lot of comments that that's okay if you disagree. I don't expect you to agree with my opinions, but I would like you to be respectful of other people's opinions, as I would try to be as respectful to you in your comments. The only way we're going to get a clear picture is by seeing it from as many angles as possible. If you're a reactive person, I respectfully suggest you come at a later time when you are more prepared to hear someone else's perspective. And if you stay till the end, I'll share a quote that has helped me in situations like these, whether I kind of like it or not. It did help a little bit. So I first kind of came across this topic by watching this video. It was of Scott Galloway on Diary of a CEO podcast. And it kind of put men's vote versus women's vote, and it put it in a way that I was completely unaware of. So again, I gained a different perspective from this as to something I previously was unaware of. I'll show the clip here. It's a little bit lengthy, so you're welcome to watch the whole thing or fast forward it as you want.
I actually did a poll in my group chat the other day, 3 or 4 days ago. So 6 men in there. And I polled them and I said, who do you want to win the election? And 4 of them said Trump. My position, actually, which I've not really ever shared publicly, is that I see no great option.
Oh, perfect's not on the menu.
Yeah, I see no great option.
Yeah.
So I'm the things that, again, I think a lot about are the wars that are going on around the world. So I ask myself, who will stop the wars? And I think a little bit about the economy. And then also, from a selfish perspective, think about my ability to build businesses, to get visas in the US and those kinds of things.
Yep.
And I also think about women's reproductive rights, because I think that's an issue that's quite close to my heart. But why are men choosing Trump?
So this is an unusual election in the sense that neither of these candidates, based on their metrics, has ever been elected before. We've never had it since maybe Roosevelt. Was it Roosevelt or Truman, actually? Have we had a president, an incumbent party, be reelected when they have less than a 50% approval? So if Harris gets elected, it's almost a first-time occurrence that an incumbent administration this unpopular gets reelected. Trump never cracked 50% approval. No presidential candidate who has never been above 50% has ever been reelected. So whoever wins, it's an unprecedented election of someone who typically does not get reelected. In terms of men, what you've seen is young men are going more conservative, young women are going slightly more progressive. And that has a lot of unfortunate ramifications because, again, it's another reason why young people are not getting together and mating. It's yet another reason not to date somebody. When I was your age, I was thinking about this when I was dating. For the life of me, if I went through every person I've dated in my 20s and 30s, I don't remember what their political affiliation was. I didn't care. We didn't talk about that. It was like, are you fun? I'm fun. Are you attracted to me? I'm not, let's go out, let's drink, let's see where this goes. We didn't talk about politics. So it's a shame because now politics is now kind of a gender divide. So it's having social ramifications. I would argue that young men are not going to the Republican Party. They're actually less conservative, or people have this image of young men that their knuckles are dragging along the ground. They actually are almost as in favor of gender rights as young women. What I would argue is that they're leaving the Democratic Party because if you go to the DNC, the Democratic Party's website, there's a section that says who we serve. Click on it. And it says, these are the constituents in America that we serve, that we advocate for. And it lists 16 demographic groups ranging from Asians and Pacific Islanders, the disabled, seniors, Black Americans, veterans. It goes through all of these groups. And I tried to add it up, and I think it adds up to 76% of the US population. But similar to kind of the DEI apparatus on campus now or on university campuses, when you're purposely advocating and trying to advantage 76% of the population, you're not advantaging 76% of the population or advocating for them. You're discriminating against the 24%. And that 24% are squarely one group. It's young men. And if you look at the Democratic National Convention, it was a parade of demographic groups, but not one mentioned the group that has fallen furthest, fastest in the United States, and that's young men. Families and young men feel this, right? We don't have an opioid or a homeless crisis in the United States. We have a male opioid and a male homeless crisis. 3 out of 4 opioid addicts, 3 out of 4 homeless people are men, right? 3 times as likely to kill themselves, 12 times as likely to be incarcerated. Women under the age of 30 are now making more money than men. More single women own homes than single men. And by the way, we should never do anything to get in the way of that. That's a remarkable victory for us. But a lot of young men and their families feel that these young men are really struggling, and they are not seen by the Democratic Party. Because the Democratic Party, I would argue that our big failure over the last 20 years is that we've become sort of these self-appointed cops of social justice and have tried to lecture the nation on what is the right social policy or behaviors, and that America has pretty squarely rejected this. The example I use is the University of Michigan, an amazing university, has invested $150 million in DEI, social policy, and the number of complaints about racism is up 30-fold. The sentiment, the feeling about America has all gone down. And so the Democrats have decided we're about social policy as opposed to the economic policies that are actually going to impact you. And a large part of America has sort of rejected it. Young men do not feel seen by the Democratic Party. And it's not only just young men, but it's their families. So I would argue it's not so much that they're moving to the Republican Party as they're moving away from the Democratic Party. But there's just to use this overused term, young men do not feel seen by the Democratic Party. It's like you're fighting for everyone except for me. And let's be honest, my group is not doing well. The group that has ascended the fastest globally is women. Twice as many women in the last 30 years elected to some form of parliament. More women globally now are seeking tertiary education than men. By the way, again, a huge victory for all of us. Fantastic. But there's this analogy that Chris Williams, the podcast that kind of reminds me a little bit of you, uses, and he calls it the high heels effect. And that is 50% of women say they won't date someone who's shorter than them. I bet it's more like 80%. It's just an embarrassing thing to say. And it's very instinctual because women at some point are more vulnerable because of pregnancy and raising kids. And they want someone who instinctively they feel could physically protect them. So they tend to be not attracted to a man shorter than them. Metaphorically, women are getting taller and taller each year, making more money, more college attendance. They're just killing it. More and more people elected to positions of power and influence. Men are getting shorter and shorter. So in sum, we've talked about this. Women mate socioeconomically horizontally and up, men horizontally and down. The pool of horizontal and up among men is smaller. And when men don't have the prospect of a romantic relationship, they come off the rails. Women oftentimes will reinvest that energy in friendships and work. Men reinvest that energy in vaping and video games and porn. I mean, men without the prospect of a romantic relationship, look at the most violent, unstable places in the world. They all have a preponderance of things, and that is a bunch of men with very little economic or romantic opportunities. And so you have a cohort of not only young men, but families that are upset and angry about this cohort, maybe unfairly expectant around what they should expect from the American economy, but they're not doing well. And they feel seen by the Republican Party and Trump, who are pushing back on many of these social policies, that the snake is eating its own tail, that it's gone so far to the progressive that at the end of the day, it's no longer promoting the rights non-whites, for example, 60 years ago, 12 black people at Princeton, Harvard, and Yale, that's a problem. 2/3 of Harvard's freshman class now identifies as non-white. And somehow, as a non-white male that's not making as much money, that's more inclined to be an addict or gambling, that owns fewer homes, somehow I'm still the enemy. I'm still like, I've been told by media that I'm kind of should have collective guilt because of the privilege my dad or my granddad received. So there's I think, justifiable anger and a feeling that the Democratic Party has really moved away from young men.
That was very surprising information for me the first time I heard it. And from my perspective as to this election, I again think the past 3 elections, when Trump first ran against Hillary, and then when he ran against Biden, and now this one, I think all 3 of those elections have been anti-candidate votes, meaning they are against one candidate more than the other. So I think in Hillary's case, they were more against Hillary and the whole, I guess, establishment, and as to what had been going on, and wanted something different. Same thing again with Trump against Biden. I think Biden seemed to have a better plan as to get us out of COVID, as that was Trump's last year, and so that's what we went with Biden. And also, besides COVID was a more pressing issue, but a lot of the social divide that was happening then too. And this time around was a little more pro-Trump because he won popular vote and won the Electoral College, and it was by a pretty significant amount. So it was a little bit more pro-Trump. But I think it was still a little bit of an anti-Harris vote because, at least as for me, I wasn't fully convinced as to what her policies and such were. It felt like she was just regurgitating a bunch of the same words, but it didn't give me a clear plan as to what. Anyways, all that aside, mostly talking about the women versus men vote. So in the video, it mentions that women now have a better upper hand. This is what we've been wanting as far as like the feminist movement and wanting to have equality, or I forget what the other word that gets thrown around synonymously in there, even though they're not the same. But so women now under 30 are making more money than men. There are more single women that own homes. There have been 2 times as many women elected into parliament, and more women seeking tertiary education. Now, pinned against men under 30, their votes, it's been what he mentioned was 3 out of 4 have drug or opioid addictions. 3 out of 4 homeless are men, and 3 times as many are more likely to die by suicide, and men are also 12 times more likely to end up in jail. And he starts mentioning the Democratic Party and how they've been in the past few years trying to promote more social awareness, and mention that thing about racism, that they're trying to make people more aware of racism. And I guess it's almost been too aware, because now complaints for racism have gone up. It's like you're noticing it more, but you're also attributing it more to being a racist thing when it may not have been a racist thing. So they're pushing definitely more for social changes rather than economic changes. And what he goes on to mention too is that economic changes have a more direct, like immediate impact on a lifestyle than the social changes. And so he goes on to say too that it feels like the Democratic Party has not been paying attention to men. And this was just kind of super fascinating to me, because also I I was grateful that I'm outside of this demographic. I'm outside of that age group. I'm married and I'm not into drugs. I'm not homeless. I don't have any thoughts for suicide. I'm pretty law abiding, so I don't feel like I'm any likelihood of ending up in jail. So I was grateful for that, but it was just kind of fascinating that this is the stuff that is going on with men at this age. And it's weird because there's a big gap there, because I'm an educator and I teach up to middle school. So I don't see them growing up in through the high school ages. I don't know what that starts setting them in the path for. And then also for once they graduate high school, I don't know what's happening there, that what is missing, what is failing them. What are we, one of the reasons we started this channel is because there are a lot of things that school isn't teaching us. And so I'm curious as to what school isn't teaching us. And we would gladly share our tips and things as to what has gotten us to where we are now, to help others. So one thing that women feel victimized about is that by men voting for Trump, they think they're anti-women. And it's, as a musician, I'll share something with you that's we call it the levels of listening. So like in a group music setting, like a band or an orchestra, there's the levels of listening. You have to listen to yourself first. Once you're able to listen to yourself, then you try to listen to yourself and your section. And then once you can do that, you can listen to yourself, the section, and then the full ensemble, the full group, the full orchestra, the full band. And so that seemed very applicable in this situation. I think so in this situation, I think women want the men to take their issues into consideration. And I think from the men's perspective, if they don't feel safe themselves also, they can't care about anything outside of their group yet either. And so this is a very real situation for them too. And it's not necessarily the same as the government telling you what to do with your body, but it is still kind of like an abandonment thing where like there's no help. You're kind of here on your own. Figure it out. Get from point A to point B. We'll see you on the other side if you make it. And so, without any help there, I don't think that men are going to be able to think outside of themselves until this is addressed. Once this is addressed, they can listen to themselves and those around them. And then once that, again, feels more comfortable, they can start caring for them, their group, and others outside of their group. So that's why I think it's important that we try to take people's perspectives into consideration. I don't have much else to say, but I thought it was a fascinating thing to have come across. The tip I'll share with you now that has helped me get a little more perspective is a quote from Greek philosopher Epictetus. We have 2 ears and 1 mouth so that we can listen twice as much as we speak. And again, maybe this is the same mentality for women. They feel like they need to listen to themselves first before they can listen outside their group, and so on and so on. But I guess at least with these stats, it appears that women have at least a little bit more going for them as far as like those goals that have been set out for them. You're now making more money than men under the age of 30. You're owning more homes, and so on and so on. Okay, so. And another extra tip that I think will help a lot of us is just stay off social media. I do think the media and social media sharing things and propaganda and making some things sound worse than what they are plays a big role in it. So try that. Take time off of social media a week or so and see how that, if you feel any better or worse or what, or just keep your friends, unfollow any big news media sources. I know after turning off my on my iPhone the news updates, I felt so much better. And this was back since 2020, so I've been a good 4 years off of that. Anyways, if you'd like to know more things that school didn't teach you, we would love to be the ones to teach you what has gotten us to where we are. I'll be on our website. I'll be adding soon a quiz as to which pretty much has the top 10 kind of quote unquote subjects that should have been taught in school that were not, or should have been taught differently, or whatever the case may be, and see which one you think you need the most help on. Okay? Well, that's about it. Also, this will be probably the last video as far as like anything political. I do have a few that I put up. I like doing video and photography stuff, and we just took a New England cruise out of New York and visited the whole New England coast, or a good chunk of the New England coast. And I like to make vacation videos for our family, to remember it. It's presented way better than just showing random videos on our phone. Anyways, I'm trying to get that done before Thanksgiving, so I'll keep you guys updated if you're interested in that as to how the video comes up. I'll post the final video, even though it might not be the same one, because YouTube does have a lot of copyright stuff that it won't let me put the music I want. But for our family, I do put more like popular music and such. Anyways, thank you for watching if you made it this far, and give us a follow or subscribe, and like the video or share it with anyone you think might be of benefit to it.